They fired me thinking I'd vanish quietly. But I made sure my silence roared louder than their lies. My name is Noelle Park, and this story, every twisted detail of it, is real. Started with the small things. My calendar invites would mysteriously disappear. I'd walk into a meeting and find my name off the agenda. A presentation I'd worked weeks on was suddenly reassigned to someone else. Someone less experienced but better liked by the VP. At first I rationalized it. Maybe it was an honest mistake. A glitch. A scheduling error. But as they piled up, the excuses crumbled. It wasn't just the calendar. It was the subtle erosion of presence, one small exclusion at a time. People who once greeted me with warm smiles began offering nods that didn't reach their eyes. The tone of emails from leadership changed. Shorter, colder, clipped. Where there had once been collaboration, there was now silence. Meetings where I used to be at the center of strategic discussions now moved forward without me. I was copied instead of included. BCC'd instead of informed. The worst part, no one said a word. I remember the morning it fully hit me. I had just arrived early to prep for a team sync. My chair was gone. Not metaphorically. Physically. Replaced with a mismatched one that creaked with every move. A small thing. But in an office that prized uniformity, I knew what it meant. He said inui. As people trickled in, I tried to engage in the pre-meeting banter. Someone cracked a joke about how director titles don't mean what they used to. Laughter. Glances. None directed at me. I wasn't invited to the joke, I was the joke. That afternoon, I was scheduled to present Q2 risk forecasts in an ops leadership call. When the agenda was emailed out minutes before the meeting, my name was missing. My topic had been folded under Carla's line item, General Risk Outlook. I raised my hand digitally because the meeting was hybrid and waited. Nothing. The moderator moved on. I stayed late that night. Not to catch up on tasks. Not to fix slide decks. But to sit alone in my office and feel everything I had spent 7 years building begin to rot around me. That was when I opened a new folder on my encrypted drive. I named it Just In Case. Inside, I started saving emails, ones that showed contradictory messages from leadership, deadlines changed without notice, requests that came in verbal form only. I snapped photos of my mismatched chair. I saved screenshots of messages where credit for my work was rerouted. I didn't know what I was building. Only that I needed to protect myself. But it wasn't just the company making me disappear. It was people I had once mentored. People who had come to me crying over failed projects. Who had leaned on me. They looked away now. Crossed to the other side of the hallway. Closed their doors faster. One evening I passed Jonah, our finance analyst, in the parking lot. "Hey," I called out. He looked up. Met my eyes. Then looked through me like I was a tree or a wall. He got in his car and drove away. And I stood there, keys in hand, realizing just how alone I was becoming. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about something my mother once said. Sometimes people don't need to be told to abandon you. They just need to see others doing it first. By Friday I had a spreadsheet, a timeline, and a plan. Because whatever this was, it wasn't random. And I wasn't going down quietly. The line between cautious optimism and devastating clarity is razor thin. For weeks I tried to hold on. Tried to convince myself that this was salvageable. That maybe I'd misread the signs. Maybe I was just tired. Overworked. Paranoid. But the universe has a way of ripping the blindfold off. It was during our Q3 revenue review when I crossed the invisible line. I had poured nearly 2 weeks into my forecast presentation. Every metric cross-checked, every graph annotated, every risk point broken down into tangible actions. It was meticulous. It was airtight. And it was gone. The moment I walked into the conference room, I knew something was wrong. My laptop wouldn't connect to the screen. My name wasn't on the printed agenda. And sitting confidently at the head of the table, clicker in hand, was Leo. He smiled at me. Not a warm smile. A rehearsed one. Then he began his presentation. Slide by slide, I watched my work unfold, except it wasn't mine anymore. The graphs were identical, though some colors had been changed. The order of points shuffled. The wording softened. But the structure, the core, every insight, every data set, every call to action was unmistakably mine. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't speak. Not yet. I studied the room. Carla sat near the far end, arms folded, watching Leo with a slight nod. Others around the table scribbled notes, nodded, murmured affirmations. No one questioned it. No one looked at me. When the meeting ended, I waited. Let the others file out. Then walked straight to Carla's office. She was already at her desk, typing. "You saw the deck," I said. She paused. Didn't look up. I did. It was mine. Finally, she glanced up. "No, we're all working toward the same goals. Leo just happened to be the right voice to deliver it this time." Deliver what? My work. Without my name on it. Sometimes leadership is about stepping back, letting others take the spotlight. You've had your time. Now it's about mentoring. Supporting. I blinked. So mentoring means being erased? She exhaled sharply and closed her laptop. "You're too emotional about this. That's part of the problem. You're intelligent, talented, but you take everything personally. That's not sustainable in an executive role." My ears burned. That word, emotional, had always been a weapon in corporate spaces. A tidy way to label a woman's resistance as irrational. A protest as hysteria. I walked out of her office without another word. But that night I stayed late. Opened the just-in-case folder again. Added a new subfolder, Leo. Inside I saved a time-stamped copy of my original deck. My Slack messages requesting feedback. The auto-saved Google Doc logs showing my edits, my login history, my fingerprint. Then I opened a blank note. I typed, "This is the moment I stopped waiting for fairness." Because I knew what came next wasn't going to be fair. And I was done hoping it would be. I didn't sleep much that week. Every night I stayed up cross-referencing emails, calendar invites, expense reports. It was like constructing a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces burned. Some things no longer existed. But what did remain was damning enough. I created a master document. A timeline that mapped every moment things began to shift. I marked the day Leo was moved under Carla's department. The week my budget access was restricted. The exact time my name vanished from the Q3 review deck metadata. My dining table became a command center, sticky notes, color-coded spreadsheets, USB drives labeled with numbers instead of names. I stopped listening to music. I stopped answering personal calls. I stopped believing anyone at work had my back. Then came the note. An anonymous envelope slid under my office door late one Friday. Inside, a single printed sentence. "They did the same to Adam in 2019. He never spoke up. You should." No sender. No signature. But I remembered Adam. A brilliant systems analyst. Quiet, kind, gone overnight. No goodbye email. No LinkedIn update. Just vanished. Whisper said he had discovered something about vendor contracts and disappeared after a closed-door meeting with Carla and HR. That night I couldn't breathe. I stood in my bathroom, hands gripping the counter, staring at my reflection until my vision blurred. My throat burned with something between rage and panic. I wasn't crazy. This wasn't personal failure. It was design. By Monday morning I was back at the office before sunrise. And that's when I met Priya. She was new to the legal team. Young, precise, with a quiet watchfulness I recognized immediately. We bumped into each other in the supply room, literally. I dropped a file. He picked it up. "You're Noel, right?" she asked. I nodded. She lowered her voice. "If you're building a case, check vendor approvals from Q2 last year." That's when they got careless. My eyes locked on hers. "Why are you telling me this?" She gave the smallest smile. "Because they tried it with someone I care about. And because I've seen your work." She walked away. That night I combed through archived approval chains, dozens of them. Hidden in the innocuous titles and buried among routine transactions were entries that didn't match company protocol. Payments with no corresponding deliverables. Names that led nowhere. Sign-offs by Carla on contracts drafted by Leo. I started another folder. Fraud. Inside it I put everything. But I also started something new. A list of people. People like Priya who might be watching. I called it Quiet Voices. Because I knew now I wasn't alone. I had been silenced. But I wasn't the only one. The moment I found the Q2 vendor files Priya mentioned, something shifted. It was no longer about revenge. It was about exposure. About making sure they couldn't keep doing this to people like Adam, to people like me. But I couldn't do it alone. At first I wasn't sure who to trust. The office had become a maze of false smiles and unspoken alliances. But if Priya existed, if someone like her could take a risk for the truth, maybe others could too. I began to watch. Not just who spoke up in meetings but who didn't. Who watched the floor instead of clapping. Who hesitated when Carla walked into a room. Who flinched when Leo cracked a joke. Then one morning it happened again. An email. No subject line. No sender I recognized. Just a spreadsheet attached, no message. It detailed inconsistencies in payment records stretching back over a year. Dozens of entries that aligned suspiciously with the files I had found. I opened a new folder, Whistle Echo. The next day I found a post-it on my windshield. Check Carla's July travel report. Nothing adds up. And they were right. Hotel invoices filed under client meetings that never took place. Receipts for transportation in cities where we had no operations. A ghost itinerary. It was Mira from compliance who reached out next. She stopped me in the hallway by the break room. "What you're doing," she whispered, pretending to stir her coffee. "Be careful. But also, don't stop." Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. Then James came. He was a senior developer, rarely spoke, always the last to leave. He caught me by the stairwell, his voice low. "You don't know me," he said. "But I saw what they did to Monica. I didn't speak up then. I won't make that mistake again." Monica. Another ghost. By the end of the week I had a map. Names, faces, entry points. Some people dropped anonymous tips. Others handed over flash drives, snippets of contracts, backdated memos. Each fragment fit into a picture that was growing clearer by the day. We started meeting off-site. In quiet cafes, parking garages, borrowed apartments. We used burner accounts, encrypted messages. We avoided company Wi-Fi. We moved like ghosts through a company that had tried to turn us invisible. We weren't a team. We were a network. And we were building something undeniable. But the company felt it. I could tell. My badge deactivated twice in 1 week. My permissions randomly revoked from folders I had created. I'd get into the office and find someone had moved my things. My chair. My pen cup, my framed photo of my sister turned face down. Once I came home and the door to my apartment was unlocked. Nothing taken. Nothing obvious. Just slightly wrong. The cabinet left ajar. A document I knew I'd left closed now open on my laptop. My carefully organized desk now just a little too clean. A message. I emailed Priya 2 words. "They know." Her reply came a minute later. "Let them. We're ready." I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. And anger, when honed, becomes precision. What they didn't realize was that their effort to isolate me had created a counterforce. Their paranoia had birthed a resistance. They taught us to fear the system. Now the system was afraid of us. It happened on a Tuesday. I had just finished my second cup of burnt office coffee when I opened my laptop and saw the warning, "Access denied." First my financial dashboards. Then vendor accounts. Then internal chat. One by one they were shutting me out. But they were late. The night before I had stayed in the office until nearly 3 a.m., pretending to wait out a system update. What I was really doing was copying every single file I could access onto an encrypted drive hidden inside a hollowed-out notebook. Budgets. Signed authorizations. Internal memos. Audit redactions. All of it. Including one document I wasn't supposed to see. Confidential. Termination strategy, Q4 risk personnel. My name was at the top of the list. Beside it, unmanageable. Possesses sensitive knowledge. Monitor closely. Phase out. I stared at the screen for a full minute. There was not paranoia. Not overthinking. A real, tangible strategy. They hadn't just fired me. They had targeted me. Calculated it. The file even had a section labeled, "Suggested Response Plan in Case of Legal Action." It detailed communication strategies, delay tactics, character undermining plans. I felt the blood leave my face. I wasn't just a threat. I was a threat they had planned for. I messaged Priya with 3 words, "We start today." By noon my badge no longer worked. I waited at the front desk for 10 minutes until a confused intern let me up. By 1 p.m., an IT email arrived saying I had been accidentally removed from internal systems and they were working on it. I knew better. At 4:17 p.m. HR called. They wanted to schedule a check-in. I smiled at the email. Kicking. As if we were just co-workers navigating a workflow hiccup. Instead, I forwarded it to Dana Cordell, my new employment attorney. She had worked whistleblower cases before, was known for her brutal cross-examinations and her refusal to settle early. We met that night in her office. I brought everything: drives, printed copies, a flash drive hidden inside a lip balm container, my timeline spreadsheet printed and color-coded. Dana took one look at the termination strategy memo and said, "They're going to regret this." The next week was a blur. Depositions, sworn statements, filing official complaints with the labor board, archiving every piece of communication, even backing up my personal cloud storage in triplicate. Meanwhile, the network held strong. Priya sent a dump of internal Slack messages where Carla referred to me as a containment problem. Mira located an email chain between Leo and a vendor clearly negotiating under-the-table payments. James found a deleted changelog from our internal system proving that my dashboard access was manually revoked, not automated. They wanted me erased. Instead, I became the historian of their downfall. By the time the lawsuit was officially filed, wrongful termination, retaliation, whistleblower interference, we had built a portfolio so airtight. Dana said the only thing left was to make sure I didn't vanish before the trial. We laughed. But not too hard. Because we knew companies like this didn't just fight. They erased. And I wasn't going to let them do it again. The courtroom wasn't glamorous. No sweeping mahogany walls or echoing gavel strikes like in the movies. Just scuffed linoleum, buzzing fluorescent lights, and a judge who looked like he drank his coffee burnt and his patience short. But to me it was sacred ground. The place where the truth would finally speak. The company came prepared. Their legal team was polished and severe, dressed in charcoal suits and armed with folders of selective context. Carla sat behind them, stone-faced. She didn't look at me once. Leo wasn't present. He had resigned quietly weeks earlier, citing personal reasons. Rumor had it he'd taken a consulting gig in another state. But his fingerprints were all over the evidence. My attorney, Dana, wasted no time. Her opening statement was a scalpel, precise, unflinching. This isn't a case about one person being fired. It's a case about a pattern. A structure built to silence, to erase, and to retaliate against truth. And then she let the evidence speak. Emails, contracts, signed memos, audit trails, Slack messages, files recovered from deleted servers, time-stamped documents, all tied to names, actions, motives. Every one of them linked back to leadership. I took the stand on the second day. They tried to rattle me. Their attorney used every cliché tactic, painted me as oversensitive, a difficult personality, someone who couldn't handle feedback. They brought up that one time years ago when I had cried in a restroom after a project collapsed. Dana objektit. Irrelevant and misogynistic. Sustained. I straightened my spine and told my story. Chronologically. Without venom, without apology. I described the gradual exclusion. The repackaged presentations. The anonymous tips. The deleted access. The hollow chair. The silence. Then the memo. The courtroom hushed as the judge read the termination strategy Q4 risk personnel aloud. He looked up at Carla. "Is this authentic?" Her lawyer stood. "We won't deny the document, Your Honor. But we will challenge the interpretation." Dana rose. "There's no interpretation needed. The memo says exactly what it means. She was a threat because she knew the truth." Then came the witnesses. Priya, calm and deliberate. James, eyes steady. Mira, voice trembling but firm. Even Monica's brother testified via video, recalling how his sister had been driven out after discovering irregularities. His voice cracked when he said her confidence never recovered. Each witness added weight. And soon the weight was unbearable. Carla's defense began to fray. Her deposition was clipped, defensive. She claimed ignorance. Claimed Leo had acted independently. But Dana presented calendar invites. Meeting notes. Travel receipts. Carla's name and signature over and over. On the final day, Dana closed with a statement I'll never forget. "You don't get to erase someone just because they remember what you want to forget. You don't get to punish someone for refusing to be quiet." The verdict took just under 2 hours. Wrongful termination, confirmed. Retaliation, confirmed. Corporate misconduct, referred to investigation. The court ordered damages. Not millions, but enough. More than that, they ordered the company to issue a public apology, reinstate my benefits, and fund an independent audit of their operations. As I stepped out of the courthouse, reporters were waiting. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Because I had already said everything that needed saying, under oath, on record, in front of the people who tried to bury me. And now I wasn't buried. I was rising. The first morning after the trial, I woke up before the alarm. There was no office to rush to. No inbox waiting to drown me. No passive-aggressive meetings or hollow smiles. Just sunlight through my window and the soft weight of peace pressing against my chest. I didn't cry. I made coffee. I sat on my balcony. And for the first time in years, I breathed without bracing. It wasn't over, of course. The company issued their apology, buried halfway down their investor site in small font. But it was there. Public. Permanent. And mine. They tried to offer me a settlement before the ruling. I declined. Because what I needed wasn't money. It was to be seen, heard, believed. A month later, I started a nonprofit. I called it Unmuted. We began in a tiny co-working space with mismatched chairs and a leaky coffee machine. Just me, a legal pad, and 2 volunteers, one of whom was Priya, who joined part-time after handing in her resignation. Our mission was simple: to help others who had been silenced, sidelined, or wrongfully terminated find their voice again. We created templates for documenting workplace abuse, held weekly Zoom sessions with pro bono attorneys, built a searchable database of whistleblower protections by state. We listened. Some of the emails we received broke me. A nurse dismissed after reporting patient mistreatment. A young engineer pushed out after refusing to manipulate data. A single mother told she was too aggressive after demanding overtime pay she'd already earned. One woman wrote, "I was going to accept the severance. Then I found your story. I chose to fight. I won." I printed that email and pinned it above my desk. Sometimes I speak at conferences. Other times I sit in the back of the room and watch another woman tell her story, her voice steady, her hands no longer shaking. I've met dozens of people who say they stayed because of Unmuted. And some who say they left, but with dignity. My own life is quiet now. I read more. I sleep better. I no longer dream of being chased through hallways. The notebook, yes, the one that held the encrypted drive, sits on my bookshelf. Between a book on whistleblower law and a worn-out copy of Audre Lorde's Your Silence Will Not Protect You. People ask me if I'd do it all over again knowing what it cost me. And my answer is always the same: I'd do it sooner. Because silence isn't safety. It's a cage. And I'm not in a cage anymore. This was my story. But it was never just mine. It's ours. Noel.